Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the SNHU Video Podcast. It has been quite a few weeks since you and I have talked. I needed to give you an update in where things have been, where they are, where I am class-wise. So, we are now currently in the phases of the cybersecurity side of our training. So, if this is the first video that you've ever seen, my name is Giovanni, and I am a junior at SNHU Online. I am an information systems management major. However, my focus is on cybersecurity. What I want to do is walk you through where things have been, and I'll give you an insight if you're considering the cybersecurity part of SNHU, because you have two different options. If you want to just focus where your major is cybersecurity, or you have the option of doing information management with a minor in cybersecurity. So completely up to you. I am planning to do my master's in cybersecurity. And so I wanted to have a sound foundation, information systems, and the management of them. And so that is the reason why I decided to do the path that I did. I am a working adult. I work 40 hours a week. And so I am completely open to answering any questions that you might have in the comment section below. But let's get started so I can walk you through what you can expect. CYB-200 Cybersecurity Foundation. You have each course at SNHU is 8 weeks long. As you go through those 8 weeks, you will have different projects that you do. A lot of the coursework now in the junior stages are papers. So you're doing a lot more papers than you are anything else. In this, you need to make sure that you get very comfortable, but by your junior year, you should be comfortable with writing papers. So we'll start off with the grades, so you should know why you should listen to me. I am holding down an A in this class. When I first began this class, I did not have the books that were needed for the course. So that was part of the reason why I wasn't doing extremely well when I started the course. But I want you to know, as someone who has started courses with C's and then score A out of the final coursework. So I'm holding an A through that. Let me break this down. And I usually do it week by week so you understand where things are. So in your first week, obviously you'll have a introduction discussion post. You have that in every class that you go through at SNHU. What is different in these courses is now you have these journal entries. As you go through these journal entries, just keep in mind that this is a conversation between you and the instructor. So it is not something that's going to be shared with the rest of the class. So you can have a very personal conversation, which I at first did not realize that he was going to give feedback. So the way that it's graded, open that up so you see the grading points. So because of this, a lot of this is in critical thinking, because at this point in your education, you should be going through and you should have developed your writing skills. So if you're coming in from another school, or you're coming in and you've been out of school for a while, you would not be starting in this class anyway. This would be your first your first cybersecurity course. So if you do end up in this course, just focus in on like your critical thinking skills and spending some time. I work in IT, and I work directly with cybersecurity team. So a lot of this is easier for me because I'm in that world. But for this, let's talk about your first activity. Obviously, in cybersecurity, you're introduced to what's called the CIA triad. And if you don't know what the CIA triad is, you will know what they are, because they focus around 3 key points. And so as they go through those key points, just make sure that you understand these are controls that in cybersecurity, this is a thing that you focus in on, is that you're consistently, and you know what, for the sake of our conversation, let me just bring the CIA triad up for you to see. So if it's not something that you know, the visuals for this will give you a very good idea. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That is where you will always focus what you're doing in cybersecurity. Okay. So just keep that part in mind. That's what you're going to write about week 1. Now, let's talk about week 2. Week 2, again, you have a discussion post. Now it's going through and your discussion posts are starting to focus in on the aspects that you're going to utilize. And what I like about this class is that it really does focus in on the aspects of cybersecurity broken down as it applies to an enterprise. So if you're considering doing cybersecurity for a small business, you'll have some touches on that in this class, but this is a lot of like enterprise level work. So just keep that part in mind. You're going to talk about data asset protection and how you would protect the assets. So think of it, for example, a bank and the assets that bank has and how would you go about protecting them. And that's a discussion topic you're going to talk about. Your journal is going to reflect on data protection, and then you're going to go into a case study and they're going to give you something very specific based off of, they're going to have, there's a rubric behind this. And I'm just showing you the rubric portion right now, but I think that there's an aspect that you really need to focus in on when it comes to data protection is really reading through the rubric first and then going back to read the overview story and then build your work after that. So that's how I would format my work. You don't necessarily in this course, typically the way that I would go through and give instructions is walking you guys through week by week and then telling you what days to focus in your work. I got some feedback from some of my viewers that a lot of them have different schedules. So me going through and suggesting they do something on Wednesday, for example, may not work with their schedule. So it's up to you at this point in your junior year, or if you're at a point where you're just starting your college career, you'll figure out the rhythm that works for you. But I do think that just having this insight, I know for me, when I was thinking about going to this school, being able to have this insight would have been very key. I would have sat down and watched this particular video because I would want to know what I'm going to need to prepare for. Now, week 3, you're going to start talking about data protection and then data privacy and how they're different. The case study in this case will be really fun. I think I won't spoil that for you. I think that this privacy protection one, I did this really like out there, off the wall privacy protection aspect and kind of tied it into the case study. I think you're going to have a great time in 3. 4, if you don't know what role-based is, like role-based controls, meaning, for example, if a person works as an executive assistant, okay, an executive assistant, for example, should not have administrator rights to a server. They don't need administrator rights. Their particular role means that they should have, for example, access to the calendar for the president of the company or the executive that they're handling. That would be something like the role-based access. And that's what you're really talking about here. And then you're also talking about security training. And this is a key part that you go into in both your discussion and also inside of your journal is how you're going to train your staff and keep them abreast. And so I do think that you will enjoy this part as well. Week 5 is what I just finished. So threat actors, you talk about all of these different threat actors, whether it is somebody trying to shoulder serve or someone trying to utilize someone else's credentials. You're going to talk about all of those in this week 5. And the journal, the contingency planning is getting you in the mindset of what happens when someone does break into your system. What is your plan? What do you plan to do? How do you plan to mitigate what access they have? Those type of things. Keep in mind that this is going to be the first leg of your project. So this is the decision-making aid. And so keep in mind the way that SNHU works, when you get up to like week 5, week 6, oftentimes your projects are in your week 5, week 6, and sometimes even week 7. Usually on week 5, they have you think out what you're going to do. As you can see in week 6, we have 2 major projects that are going to be going through, but I will bring you guys up to speed on that next week. But week 7 is usually pulled together of week 5 and 6. And then week 8, you're just given reflections. That's how each course, so far from my experience of being at SNHU for 3.5 years, I can tell you that's the way that the programs work. So that is the first 5 weeks of your CYB CYB-200 Cybersecurity Foundations class. Again, I am open to any questions that you may have about it, anything that you need to know far as like the rubrics or any videos that you want to see me make. Feel free to leave those in the comments. I'll be happy to get to those. I will see you guys next Sunday when I will post a video on week 6. 0 o'clock introduction and welcome back. 029 cybersecurity training overview. 2 o'clock course structure and expectations. 309 week by week breakdown. 444 deep dive into cybersecurity concepts. 837 role-based access and security training. 9:30 threat actors and contingency planning. 10:53 conclusion and next steps.